All right, we're ready to go.
All right, very good. Welcome, everyone. It's Mayor Moreau Weinberger. It's Monday, May 11th. Thanks for tuning in again to another COVID-19 briefing from the city of Burlington. We are going to pull up the slide deck here as we get started. We're starting another week of this emergency. Again, we expect this week, like last week, to involve a lot of discussions about what this incremental strategic restart looks like here in Vermont and Burlington. We heard from the governor earlier today some new rules about retail projecting out to next Monday. And we are going to continue this conversation a little bit in this briefing today. And as you'll see, we have, I think, some exciting news about how we will have this discussion tomorrow night in our telephone town meeting. I think we're going to start on a different topic, though. Olivia, are we going to Chapin first? So we've got our Public Works Director, Chapin Spencer, here to join us to talk about city construction projects that are going to take place during the 2020 construction season. Chapin will be briefing the full city council on this tonight. And because of that, we thought it was important to kind of share here what people can expect. And this is a season that will continue to include very significant investment in our infrastructure. However, like everything else, our plans for infrastructure investment in 2020 are going to have to be altered as a result of the emergency and some of its implications. So I'll let Chapin take it from there. Chapin, welcome. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me, Mayor. And I want to give a special thanks to all the city staff who've been flexible and helping us gear back up for our construction season, unlike any other in recent memory. So as you're seeing on screen, we have recently received guidance from the governor and from the state that a number of construction activities may restart if done appropriately. And we are prepared to initiate a number of projects. As the mayor indicated, we have refocused the city's energies over the last 4 years on a historic level of reinvestment in the city's infrastructure, starting with the voters' approval in 2016 of the Sustainable Infrastructure Plan, and then 2018 with the Clean Water Resiliency Plan. And that work has encompassed a focus on our core assets, our streets, our sidewalks, our water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. And while we have made significant progress over those 3 years, the work is still, the infrastructure still is in great need of renewal, and we have an ambitious set of plans for 2020. Next. So as we had discussed, we had a very strong plan in place. I want to acknowledge the DPW engineers and planners who have worked very quickly to modify plans based on the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a result, we've made a number of changes. One, we have obviously brought new levels of training in and new PPE and equipment to make sure that we can proceed with our work safely. We've also, given the financial challenges, we have added additional levels of financial oversight before contracts are finalized. And in addition, we've also worked with the city attorney to update our contracts in order to ensure that the private contractors are operating appropriately and also are protecting the city's liability if there are COVID-related stoppages. Lastly, our public engagement has had to change. And while we've been able to progress and advance with some capital projects, other projects really demand a robust public engagement that we are not able to begin at this time. So there are certain projects like our green stormwater infrastructure projects in the hill section and a parking management plan in the Old North End that are on hold. In addition, some of our water relining work, which involves going into people's homes, is also on pause. Next. So as we look to the work this coming season, we are excited. This week, we have a number of projects that are getting underway. Our paving for this year will be over 2 miles of paving and over 3 miles of sidewalk construction. The sidewalk work is starting this week with a project on Howard Street in the south end of Burlington, and we look forward to getting the paving work started as well. Next. There are a number of specific projects, grant-funded projects, and other localized improvements that are getting underway this week or next week. Two here, pedestrian projects. One is around Champlain Elementary School in the south end, improving routes for kids getting to and from school. And then other project up by the university in Mater Christi, improving a sidewalk and turning it into a modern shared use path on Colchester Avenue. Both of those projects, again, starting this week or next week. In addition, we are very bullish on getting the wastewater upgrades done this year. They are largely at our wastewater plants. There is a disinfection system upgrade and there are computerized control upgrades. These are funded from the 2018 Clean Water Resiliency Plan, and those projects are progressing. There are a couple projects, as I mentioned on the previous slide, that are going to be at least temporarily put on hold. And the water main relining is an important one to touch on. We have successfully relined over 8 miles of water main over the last 3 years. It's really the first time in recent memory that there has been a proactive reinvestment in our 110 miles of water main that are the vital lifeline for our community. That said, to reline those water mains requires us to get into homes and into businesses. And given the sensitivity of that work and not wanting to have to enter people's homes unless it's an absolute emergency, we have put that work on hold for this season. We may be able to restart that work later in the year. We are evaluating the conditions week to week. And so we may still get a significant portion of that work done later this year, but we will keep everyone informed. Lastly, there's obviously a myriad of other projects I haven't touched on. The city's construction portal is a great resource. The website is here. You can go to Public Works' homepage as well to get real-time updates for the myriad of projects that we are going to tackle this year. Thank you.
Hey, Chapin, thank you. Thanks for laying that all out. Could you just expand on a little bit? That might not be intuitive to people. Why do we need to get into people's homes when we're doing this water main and sewer relining work?
Great. Happy to talk about that, Mayor. So this technology is an exciting technology where instead of having to replace a water main or a sewer main by digging up the entire street, we are able with technology to pull basically a liner through and be able to reline the pipe in place, which is great technology. One of the challenges of that technology on the water side is that it requires temporary hookups for people's homes. And to do those hookups in many homes, it requires us to go inside a residence and provide that hookup. On the wastewater side, when we reline the wastewater mains, we are asking residents not to contribute to the sewer in great amounts during that relining. As a result, during this pandemic, we want to minimize the impact on our residents at times when people are vulnerable and needing a high degree of sanitation. So we were holding for that reason on those projects.
Great. I want to echo Chapin's point that the construction portal is an excellent resource for anyone who wants to get more detail on what the city's projects in this construction season are going to involve, and then follow projects over time. This, over the last, I don't know, what has it been now, Chapin, 4 or 5 years, has become a new planning tool for the city, as well as a tool that I think really allows a much greater understanding by the public of what the city is planning for the upcoming construction season. It's really quite an interactive portal where if you can have as many different layers of information on as you would like. There's a lot of historic information on the portal at this point. It really gives a visualization into the really massive amount of infrastructure work that the city has been undertaking since 2016. I really appreciate Chip and your team's commitment to keeping that portal updated and relevant. And thank you to the IT team for everything they've done to make that possible as well. Great, Chapin. Thanks for that. Why don't you stick around in case there are questions a little later, but we're going to move on to the next part of the update, which is we wanted to update the public and the media on the city's efforts to ensure that the homeless are properly cared for, supported during this emergency. One of the principles, the tenets of the city's response to COVID-19 is that to ensure that this is a equitable response and recovery, we really need to focus on the members of the community that are most vulnerable to the impacts of COVID-19. And one of the early initiatives that stem from that focus and commitment was the relocation of the low barrier shelter that has been in the downtown for the last since 2014. There's an early recognition that shelter was not going to be adequate for the emergency, in an emergency that required people to social distance, because just the way that facility is designed, people live in pretty tight quarters. So in March, since the end of March, we have had this great partnership between the city, the state of Vermont, which has been providing very substantial funding for this effort, and a new place to relocate the low barrier shelter to the North Beach campground. We've got Kevin Pounds, the executive director of a new place, on with us, and I can see a photo of you, Kevin, and here you go. Thank you for zooming in and being part of this. The status of this effort is changing this week, and we wanted to brief the public on it. And Kevin, I appreciate you joining us to bring people up to speed on what is happening with the facility at the North Beach campground.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we've had to fast track our timeline a little bit, just due to the lease running out on the campers. And so this morning, our staff on site's been on the process of working with the State Economic Services Department to help a lot of the people that have been staying in the campground transition to hotels. I think this, isn't going to be a big surprise, but quite a few of them, are not going to be able to stay in hotels. And so we're trying to find just some alternate, I guess the best way to say it is some alternate survival techniques for them to make it through for the next few weeks until we open up. And if you want me to get into this or not, but open up a tenting site on June 1st. And that's kind of what we're working towards right now. So our staff is actually, that we've shut down our office at the campground this morning and are opening it temporarily an office back up at 179 South Winooski, so we can just help some of the guests who weren't able to get in hotels kind of navigate this for the next few days.
Great, Kevin. Well, thank you for the work that A New Place has done to get this facility stood up quickly. And why don't you share a little bit further about your thinking with this still in the planning stage concept, but of how a tent site would work.
Yeah, I think it's, I think any of us that live in Burlington are aware that there's quite a few of our neighbors experiencing homelessness that kind of scatter and survive during the warm weather months. And, I think that, there's probably mixed feelings about, the tents showing up in different spots around town. But I think, one of the things that's kind of grown out of the last few weeks is, just quite honestly, relationship with the city, Burlington Parks and Rec, is just the realization that, we actually, do kind of have the framework now from running the campers at the campground for what could become a sanctioned tenting area where, we some of the same guests that we had in the campers, instead of them just being spread around, as if we can provide some basic things like showers and bathrooms and even, a meal per night. And I think a lot of it, and I have to give really credit to our frontline staff on this. more so than anybody else, just like they've developed just a great relationship of trust with a lot of the guests. And I think they just honestly feel safer in an environment where, they'd still be tenting, but have some, lack of a better word, oversight, and I think so we're working towards that, probably, population be around 30 people. But I feel like that's manageable, and there's a demand for that too. So, given like a lot of things right now as we navigate the COVID-19 landscape, I feel like, we're trying to just get a couple steps ahead, so we're not building the plane as we fly it, right now.
Well, Kevin, again, I really welcome that a new place is committed to doing this work. It has been I think the low barrier shelter has been a critical addition to the Burlington social service safety net since it was created in 2014. There was, I think it was a pretty significant milestone that we stood up this facility in 2014. There have been years of debate and some controversy around doing it and concerns about how it would actually operate. But from my perspective, it's really been a successful program in the years since. It's gone through a few different formulations and different groups running it, a new place starting in the fall of 19 for the first time. But we've never really had any significant negative problems as a result of operating the shelter. And from my perspective, it's pretty clearly had it reduced the suffering. And they're really, my sense, we used to see, I've never seen a good sort of analysis of this, but my sense is there's been very few exposure deaths in recent winters since this program was introduced. And I think sort of simultaneously with that, the state has had this hotel motel voucher program that has also been aimed at making sure that people in the coldest parts of the winter have a roof over their head. It's been my goal for several years to expand the months of operation, and we've had some modest incremental additions to that. Last year, the shelter operated, instead of ending in early April, it operated all the way till June 1st, I believe. And I really welcome a new place stepping up and trying to get a option for the summer months established by June 1st. The city intends to be a full partner with you in that in any way we can. We are exploring the North Beach continuing to be a location where that takes place. And, after your staff gets some well-needed rest during this period, we're looking forward to the kind of continuation of this low barrier effort through the summer months. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We also have with us today Jeffrey Pittenger, who is a senior advisor to the commissioner at the Vermont Department of Children and Families, or DCF. People often refer to the agency as, and DCF has really been the key reason that this facility was able to be created. And Jeffrey, we really appreciate you joining us today, so we could say directly thank you to the state for moving so quickly during the early days of this emergency to make this facility possible. And then not just this facility, but also I think the way the state has ensured that there are resources for the homeless community during this emergency has really been very commendable. I think this really made good on the idea that everyone needs a roof over the head during an emergency that requires us to shelter in a home, essentially. So I understand that the state's as the crisis shifts and as we enter kind of a new phase in this crisis, the way in which the state supports the homeless is changing as well. I was hoping you could give us some updates on where we stand on that front.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the kind words. I would point out that was a much bigger effort than just the state. We really appreciate all that our communities and our community partners have done to support folks who are vulnerable during the pandemic. I think it speaks incredibly highly of Vermont and Vermonters when there's a crisis. First and foremost, I just want to put out there that there have been concerns that May 15th would be some sort of hard deadline for folks in motels. That is not the case. We're going to be extending, and the Secretary are extending the use of the motel voucher program past May 15th. We think that it's much more responsible and a better outcome for everybody involved to take a phased approach to transitioning away from the large numbers of folks that we have in motels currently. But if I take a second to go back, I think we really, as a state, did an incredibly effective job of implementing the CDC guidance and practices to slow the spread of COVID-19, particularly in congregate settings, and really prevented an outbreak amongst Vermonters experiencing homelessness. So far, we have only had one known case of Vermonter who is experiencing homelessness who had tested positive. That's really remarkable when you think about it and when you put it in a national context. I think that's really a testament to the fact that when this started, we, along with our community partners, were able to come together and figure out how can we best keep folks who are vulnerable safe in a really challenging time. And we worked across the state to reduce the census of emergency shelters so that there would be more space. That was the first thing we did. We also helped to expand shelter services to 24/7. We also helped to, in some instances, shelters closed, but in other instances, they relocated into hotel settings, complete with their support services. And this was really all an effort to try and reduce the spread, meet the social distancing guidelines, and do the best we could to comply with a stay home, stay safe order. Along those lines, we opened up alternative quarantine and isolation recovery housing, and also opened up the general and emergency assistance programs, hotel voucher program, first to vulnerable populations, hyper-vulnerable populations, over 60 or folks with underlying health conditions, to get them out of congregate settings, and then to expand the eligibility to essentially keep in place the adverse weather conditions in order to try and help folks without a home be able to stay home and stay safe. I think that those policies really worked really well to keep, again, to keep the spread from exploding in an uncontrollable way among these vulnerable populations. Where we are now is we have a large number of folks in motels. We are now focused on shifting from a crisis response phase to a recovery phase. So the state is working on a housing recovery plan that has short, medium, and long-term approaches, which essentially what we want to do is to get folks out of the motel settings and into permanent housing as quickly as possible, wherever possible. So this is really about the three legs of the stool that you often hear folks in the world of housing and homelessness talk about: support, services, and stock. We are really fortunate that we've had really good, solid, creative community partners providing support services in challenging conditions. We want to figure out how we can continue to keep our clients engaged and trying to work with folks as best we can to a more permanent and sustainable solution. So that's a plan that we're going to be working on, fine-tuning over the coming weeks, and hopefully stretching that out over the summer into the fall in terms of a transition away from such a large use of hotels into something more sustainable for our clients and our communities.
Great, Jeffrey. Thank you for that. And I want to hit on a couple of points you raised. First of all, thank you for pointing out, and I had intended to, I think it's a really important point, that it is a real success of this first stage of the state's response to COVID-19 that there have been so few infections in homeless facilities. Kevin, I hope you and your team feel some real pride over there. I mean, that was the concern driving the desire to move quickly and relocate from the low barrier downtown site to North Beach was a real concern that you could have a major outbreak there quickly. And I think the fact that didn't happen is something we should be celebrating right now. So, Jeffrey, Kevin, your organizations, congratulations, and thank you for your work to achieve that. And Jeffrey, I really appreciate that the state is thinking, as terrible as this crisis is, as terrible as this pandemic is, one does sense that there are, if we take the right steps over the course of the emergency, there is an opportunity to actually make some progress on some of these chronic issues that have long plagued the community if we are strategic and we are smart about our response. And I appreciate that the state, really explicitly is attempting to do that with respect to homelessness. This is an area we've made some progress on in recent years. At the same time, it has remained a considerable challenge, and clearly our work is unfinished. Trying to ensure that any investment that is made with these emergency dollars also forwards our long-term homelessness goals is exactly the right way to think about it. And I think, even sort of give some meaning to those that have suffered during this tragedy. And I just wanted to say with you here, the city fully supports that, believes that is how we should be approaching this, and sees some potential real opportunity to make progress in the low barrier space in particular. And we have all three organizations that represented on this Zoom call right now are continuing conversations about what that looks like. I don't think we have further details to share at this point, but I certainly will be very explicit that it remains a goal of mine to expand low barrier options in this community throughout the year, in particular during the warm weather months when we really do not have sufficient facilities. And I'm eager to keep working with your agency and the state on that, Jeffrey. Did you? I'm sorry if you said it and I didn't fully hear it. Can you? I just want to make sure we've talked on these briefings a number of times about the Holiday Inn site, and can you speak to the transition that the Holiday Inn site is going through?
Right. So the Holiday Inn had been previously, most recently, identified as the Jitney Recovery Center. And now we are pivoting again to, we have other isolation and quarantine and recovery housing sites that are available and meet what we believe is the scale of need, potentially. So the Holiday Inn is, at this point in time, there are ongoing negotiations to resume that use as an emergency housing site, using it as an emergency motel.
Sorry.
Yep.
Someday we'll all get better at the mute button. The way to characterize the current status of the Holiday Inn site exactly is that there are ongoing negotiations about exactly what role it's going to perform going forward.
That's correct. We want to make sure that that's done with a lot of intention and the supports necessary.
Okay. All right. Well, again, Jeffrey, thank you for coming on. If you could stick around, I do think we have a significant number of members of the media that are with us, and there may be some additional questions. Let us just hit the final two. I think there's a couple more topics we wanted to get to, and then we may come back to you. I want to give some more details about this telephone town meeting that we talked about last week. We are going to, and I want to clarify, there was some discussion of a Wednesday event. The event will be tomorrow, Tuesday, May 12th at 5:10 p.m. And I am really pleased to say that we are going to be joined on this event by Josh Sharfstein, Dr. Josh Sharfstein, who is a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. He is someone that has worked with us in the past on our opioid epidemic. People may remember that he was one of the participants in the 2019 town hall in Contoy's auditorium. He has been the health commissioner for the city of Baltimore, and he is very engaged in this response to the COVID-19 emergency. He is directing the Bloomberg American Health Initiative, and in that role, he is part of these weekly briefings for America's mayors, and really, it's actually an event that has many mayors from outside of America involved, and he has been briefing the mayors from across the country. He has been an architect of this box it in strategy that we talked about on Friday's briefing. And I'm really excited that the people of Burlington are going to get to hear from Dr. Sharfstein directly and have a chance to ask a few questions from truly one of the preeminent experts in the country on how to properly respond to COVID-19. So join us tomorrow at 5:10 p.m. We will make it possible to participate in this town hall meeting in a number of different platforms. People who like Zoom will be able to Zoom in directly. We will have a Facebook Live stream going, and we will also be working to call out to thousands of Burlington phone numbers and have a call-in number if people want to participate by telephone as well. People may recall we had a town hall like this just as the emergency was beginning back in mid-March. More than 2,700 people participated in that, and really there were thousands of additional views on Facebook Live. So as we enter this next stage, the restart stage, or the box it in stage, as I've been starting to call it and others have been calling it, I think it's really a good time for us to check in as a community on what the challenge is and the hope is for this next stage of the emergency. So we'll be pushing this out through other platforms as well. But again, join us tomorrow, May 12th, 5:10 p.m. If you would like to be part of this telephone town hall.
And Mayor, I actually have an exciting update there too.
Oh, great.
We've been able to confirm that Dr. Stephen Leffler from UVMMC, who members of this briefing will know, or people who view this briefing will know, and of course people in Burlington will know, will be able to join as well.
Great. I'm Dr. Leffler, yes, the president and COO of the UVM Medical Center, who has been leading the hospital's efforts. That's great. We'll be able to have questions to him, as well as sort of the engagement of a national expert by one of our great local experts. So excellent. Hope to see many of you tomorrow at 5:10 p.m. Let's I guess we do have two more things actually. So quick update. We've talked about it many times on these briefings. Won't spend a lot of time here, but I just wanted to lay out the Community Mask Initiative distribution sites and times for this week. So there are the times we're currently planning. People can always find this information on the city website as well. This is, as we mentioned on Friday, this may be the kind of last week where we're making this broad push to distribute the masks at numerous different sites. We distributed more than 3,500 in this way last week. We will have further updates later in the week on how what opportunities are for securing masks if you aren't able to get to any of these sites. And then finally, our fun at home resource of the day. Olivia, you want to walk people through this one, since I'm just seeing this one now as it goes up on the screen?
Yes, happy to. We have been doing these fun at home resources of the day in every one of these briefings because a number of our city departments have been producing really wonderful activities and programs and other opportunities that people can still participate in from home. And the one that we are highlighting today is the Burlington City Arts Home Studio. And Home Studio has a bunch of different activities in it. And one recent one is videos of studio tours with local artists. And the most recent one of these videos is with the local artist, Catherine Monstream. And you can find this video and all of these other resources from Burlington City Arts at bcahomestudio.org.
That's great. I've been seeing Catherine's posts on Facebook and know and I think that's what's represented there. She's in the middle of this series right now where people want small images. She can convert landscapes from photos into her unique and wonderful hand. And I think she's doing a large number of them right now. So perhaps that's what's featured in the studio tour. Excellent. Thank you again to BCA for the steady stream of new virtual content during this emergency. And with that, I think let's open it up for questions, Olivia.
Great. We have a number of questions. We are going to try to do something new today. And so for members of the media who have emailed me to submit your question, I'm going to be looking for your name here on Zoom, and I will enable your microphone so you can ask your question directly. So our first question is from Erin Brown at WCAX. So Erin, I'm going to enable your microphone and let's see if this works. Okay, Erin, it doesn't look like that is working. So you did email me your question, so I will go ahead and ask this directly. And Erin's question is, what is your response to Governor Phil Scott's announcement this morning that retail will open up on May 18th? And do you plan to impose any further guidelines to keep people safe while shopping?
So thank you, Erin, for that question. I really support generally how the governor has been approaching the restart effort. I think, again, the approach that I think there's a significant amount of public health consensus around, and that we'll speak more about at this town meeting, is you need to have 3 conditions in place in order to start reopening. And I think here in Chittenden County, it's pretty clear that we have met these 3 preconditions. First of all, the number of new infections is at a very low level right now and has been for well more than 2 weeks. Secondly, as we heard from Dr. Leffler last week, the hospital's in good shape, good supply of PPE, and is ready for a restart. And then third, there has been a big push to put in place to build a new public health infrastructure to help us box in the virus and really fight the virus. That system is going to be tested in the weeks and months ahead, and we'll certainly be all watching very carefully to see that that the public health infrastructure can deliver on what we need it to do and what we hope it can do. But for right now, I think the governor is taking the right approach to be moving incrementally, strategically to restart. I think he has been choosing the changes that will have a high impact. We know restarting retail soon is important if we are going to hope to save these critical elements of our downtowns. We know that retail and restaurants have been tremendously hard hit by the COVID-19 emergency. And I support this cautious reopening, which will include a limitation on 20, as I understand it, to just 25% of the maximum occupancy of those spaces at this point, as well as retailers are going to need to put in place strong hygiene and social distancing measures within those facilities. So I think the state has been quite remarkable, really, the way the state has turned out very detailed guidance for every different industry that they are allowing to reopen. And I believe that's what they've done here. And I support this as a measured next step. And I think we'll all be watching now to see what happens with the numbers before proceeding further.
Our next question is from Aiden Quigley at VT Digger. Let's try this again. Aiden, I will enable your microphone and see if it works for you to ask your question directly.
Hello?
Hi, Aiden. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Yeah, so I think this question is probably for Kevin. It's on the homelessness issue. How many people are currently staying at North Beach, and how many of them will be moving into hotels or motels?
Yeah, so we've had 25 campers there, pretty full most of the time. Looks like, this is like a moving target as we're going today. So these are my most up-to-date numbers. So that could change by 9 p.m. tonight. So I apologize if they're a little off, but it looks like we have 13 that are going into motels right now. And so, that means, you can read between the lines. It means there's going to be another 12 that are going to be taking the scatter and survive approach for the next 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you are exploring options for those people. I guess what are the options that you are looking at?
Realistically, what it means, and this, you can probably hear the trepidation in my voice. Is like, this is not what we'd want for anybody, but we're, right now it means a tent and a sleeping bag, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talked about, June 4th. Can you expand on what that's going to look like and the location of that site? Is there more details available on that?
Yeah, I think we're in conversations with the city on that, but one thing that I think has been, and so I'll just say this, I live in Burlington. I'm a resident of Burlington. I personally appreciate how my neighbors have been really just flexible with us using North Beach Campground. And I live on North Ave, half a mile from it. So when I say it's my neighbors, it's literally my neighbors that that go through there to use the bike path and the beach and everything. And so I know one of our big priorities, just even when we're talking with our staff has been that, we know that, at some point, we're going to have to create, space for people to get through there again. And so, we're looking at utilizing the south side of the campground. Will give us some access to showers and bathrooms and stuff like that. And so it also, creates more space for, through traffic to get down just, and I know it's not even in our realm of, expertise of when that opens or how that opens or anything like that. But I think that people in Burlington love getting outside. And so we're looking at utilizing the south side of the North Beach Campground. Great.
I did have another question. You said, I think it was 12 people could not get into hotels or motels. I guess why is that?
Yeah, some of that is up to the, individual hotel owners still. Just to be honest, different ones have different protocols for how they'll let people stay. I think that, this might be surprising for a lot of us, but a lot of people experiencing homelessness don't have something as simple as an ID and maybe kind of like living life that way. And if you don't have an ID, there's a lot of things you can't get access to. That is what it has to do with for a lot of people. And so, I'd say the majority has to do with that, but that may not be everyone.
All right, thanks. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aiden.
Our next question is from Zuri at NBC5. Zuri, I'm going to try to enable your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Zuri.
Hi. Are there any updates on City Hall Park construction and City Place?
Hi, Zuri. So yes, my understanding, I was as recently as this morning, is that City Hall Park construction is scheduled to restart this week. You can see I'm actually speaking to you from my home, my office, so I haven't had a chance to peek out there myself. I think it's possible that you might see activity happening in City Hall Park as soon as today. City Place. Here's what I can say at this point: we are working towards a full update to the City Council as soon as possible. I think you'll see an update not tonight, but in one of the coming meetings. And at this point, what I've said and what I think, if you look at a statement from the developer's representative that was reported on last week, is clearly there has been some impact on that project as a result of the COVID-19 emergency. I think that's not surprising. Pretty much everything has been impacted by that emergency in one way or another. I have had several discussions with Brookfield leadership since the emergency began, and consistently they have indicated to me, and I think you can see in the public statement last week, that they see the impacts of the emergency as certainly real in the short term. They don't at this point feel that it has fundamentally changed their perspective on the medium and long range prospects for the downtown Burlington development. And we will have further updates on that in the weeks ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zuri.
And that is all we have for questions from members of the media today.
All right, very good. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. There will be, I think I probably should just add a reminder for anyone watching that tonight is a Board of Finance and City Council meeting, and we're still relatively new in this era when these meetings take place through this technology, this platform, the Zoom platform. If you would like to participate in the public forums for either meetings, there are ways to do so, which you can get instructions for at the city website and by going to the specific meeting information. And beyond that, looking out to the rest of the week, again, we will have this telephone town meeting tomorrow at 5:10 p.m. Look for more information. You can already see posts up online with details about how you log in for that. We'll be back at 2:00 on Wednesday and Friday as our current plan for additional COVID-19 briefings. I want to say thank you again to our guests, Kevin Pounds and Jeffrey Pittenger, for participating in today's briefing. And we will see everybody again soon. Thank you.